Mercedes front wing, and essentially a lot of comments around the situation Mercedes have found themselves in with this advantage, Ben, that compression trick with the engine, the front wing wasn't closing properly. Were Mercedes cheating? The Mike LD said, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that FIA's favourite child never gets penalised for blatant cheating. Now, Ben, I have thoughts which I don't think are correlating with this comment here, and that's around when I was growing up and when I was watching the sport as a fan, there wasn't any bias towards Mercedes. It was around Michael Schumacher, and the FIA always helping Ferrari to make sure Schumacher wins was the sort of prevailing theory at the time. Am I seeing history repeat here, that the team that's at the front always gets the attention to think that they're cheating somehow?
I think it's just a case of people always picking on the team that are leading at the front and looking to reel in that advantage. There's always an assumption that just because they're doing well, that they must have bent the rules some way. But of course, with this new regulation set, it's always about exploring the grey areas and trying to find those unique points where you are able to gain an advantage. Let's remember that these cars are always designed and built with the FIA's scrutiny and knowledge, and all the plans have been submitted and they've worked through a really detailed process. So there's no real surprises in there, or there shouldn't be any surprises in there for the FIA. But I do think this is kind of a case where you have opposing teams slinging a little bit of mud in their direction, saying, oh, the engine trick, or they've got something that's not right on their car. And all it is to sort of push the FIA to look in areas, and then the teams will caveat it by saying, we just need clarification over the ruling, knowing that they believe there may be something a little bit fishy going on and hoping that that area gets tidied up. But yeah, it's always the team at the front. No one's ever looking at the team in the back, accusing them of doing something wrong, are they?
Well, you never know. People might look at Aston Martin and think, wow, they're doing something so good, they've gone so slow. And I've seen actually some theories online about the Adrian Newey or Aston Martin Honda situation is that they've built the car to certain regulations that will change in their favour, like they somehow know the future of a crystal ball, which will be very interesting if that comes off and Fernando Alonso's L plan finally is revealed to us. But I always think with these sorts of questions or these sorts of comments that if the internet existed in the 90s, for example, would we have so much attention on Williams, who are cheating, or Benetton or whatever, that it's a symptom now of there's such a online discourse that you can get picked up in the hype, and then you see other people that we talk about echo chambers, don't we, online with political stuff. It's the same thing with Formula One, that if you're in this instance, maybe the Red Bull or McLaren camp or Ferrari camp, that you will look at Mercedes and think, you know what, they're beating us. And the people that I speak to online who are like me think that they're cheating. So you can get whipped up into a frenzy. And this is just going to be the logical follow on from how things were when you'd have your mates who supported the team that you supported back in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was always accusations of cheating back in the past. I remember when there was accusations of hidden computer files. When you plugged a computer in to adjust engine settings, it would automatically delete or hide menu settings and various different elements. But because the way the media works and the way social media works, the way we consume sport in general is now 24/7. It's under the microscope a lot more, and it's given rise to many opinions and many voices. So, you know, the way that the sport is reported is different to how it was during the 90s, which is why we've got so many talking points. Back in the day, it would have all been about personalities, whereas we seem to be overrun with technical stories at the moment. And I'd like it to go back to the personalities, to be honest. But that's where we're at. I think there's a lot of, as I said before, a lot of mudslinging in various different directions. But it's creating talking points. And you know, I think Formula One has had a difficult start to these regulations, with drivers being so critical. But the other element is, you know, people are still talking about Formula One, and that's a good thing. You know, it's still in the mainstream media, so that's a positive. I think that it's only a period of time before these regulations get ironed out a little bit more, and probably everyone's a bit happier. But yeah, I think just generally the media landscape's changed a lot since then, and the way that things are reported are very different.
Can I argue a different way of looking at this on the cheating side? And this isn't going to you specifically, the Michael D, but just in general of the sport. Why I like Formula One is the sport. I do enjoy it, but I don't watch rugby or football, or I like athletics a little bit, but like the only way there's cheating necessarily in that is trying to pull the wool over the referee's eyes when you're on the field, and there's doping scandals, things like that, which doesn't really happen in Formula One. Any sort of cheating ideas, you can't cheat in your lap time as the driver. You can crash into another car. You can do the things like we saw in Singapore many years ago, which I don't like to talk about with Renault. But the thing that I actually enjoy is these grey areas, as you called them earlier, that if it's a thing that the FIA haven't stipulated in the regulations and you can do a loophole, that the expression like one man's cheat is another man's advantage or something might be apt, that it's not necessarily that it's cheating, it's innovation. Double diffuser is a perfect example of this, the massive advantage it gave because of the genius. And I think that's almost unique within sport, that within our sport, within Formula One, that you can get these advantages and it's not necessarily a cheat, it's doing something. So if this engine regulation, say, that might curtail Mercedes comes to pass, they should be lauded for looking through the regulations and finding something between the lines to think, hey, we could get an advantage from this, and it's them being better than everybody else. Am I wrong?
No. I mean, I always think how mega would Formula One be if we had no rules and you're allowed a totally clean sheet of paper. I actually will say I think the cost cap has been a good thing in Formula One. I've actually enjoyed the fact that there's a little bit more competitiveness across the board. I think that's good, but I do think that the regulations are so restrictive that I do wonder what happens if we just do away with that rule book and just allow people freedom to design what they want. And just curious what rocket ships we'd end up with. I'd love to see that. And this is where the whole sports stroke entertainment, stroke business, financially viable, stroke environmentalism is all merged, and it becomes quite a tricky proposition. I would like to see Formula One just stripped out as entertaining sport, and that's why I'm quite a big advocate for going back to V8 engines, V10 engines, and just taking the simplicity approach and just making things much more fun to watch rather than the convoluted hybrid systems that we've got at the moment, which people aren't able to relate to, whether that's future technology or not. I just think there's a disconnect between the fan and what we're actually watching. So I support that view. I like people to explore the grey areas, and they come up with great designs, and the dual axis steering system that Mercedes invented a few years ago could have been a fantastic route for Formula One to go down. It was allowing the cooling of tyres and obviously longer runs, and prevented teams from making unnecessary pit stops. So I thought that was quite a good route to go down, but of course they outlawed that due to pressure from other teams putting that on the FIA, and the FIA saying, okay, you can use it this year, but next year it's banned. And that was a shame, because that was something which was designed in conjunction with the FIA. They knew all about it, but they outlawed it. So it's pretty, to tie in the 2 points that we've been discussing, it is a bit of a shame that was reeled in, and done so because of pressure from other teams and accusations, not so much of cheating, but clarification of the rule book.
Let us know if you have any particular fond memories from the past of any things that got banned in Formula One in the comments below.